Everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric and a continuing series on the MiSTer FPGA DE10 Nano board project. And today there's a video I didn't anticipate making, but recently the maker of the PlayStation 1 core on MiSTer updated the core with some new and very exciting and awesome features that I can't wait to talk about. Before I get to far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and that notification bell definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined, we got a Patreon link down below as well. And if I sound ever so slightly sick, that's because I'm ever so slightly sick. But taking a look at Silent Hill here, with the dithering on, this is what the game usually looks like with all of this dithering, and we were able in the original core, the released version, to turn that dithering off, but I'm going to start stepping through these things, and now you'll see the core with the dithering off. You get all of these rainbow bands in the image, and that's down to the color bit depth. It's something I deal with all the time in filmmaking, the color bit depth, but there are some things that can be done, because if we take a look now at what's going on, you're going to see that suddenly the dithering is gone, and also those color bands are gone. But how did that happen? How could something like this occur? And taking a look at another image here as well moving forward, you'll see that the ground looks a little bit more pixelated than it did in the last shot. Well, that is because Robert, the developer of this core, has added some very exciting options. I'm going to go over one at a time to help you understand and enjoy, because there is 24-bit color, and there is also now going to be texture filtering. Take a look at this image here, Tomb Raider 2. Nothing is changed. This is how it would appear on a stock PlayStation 1. These are all stock out-of-the-box settings for MiSTer. We just need to get back to a place where I can show you a side-by-side, because the results of these new features are absolutely spectacular and it's almost unbelievable. You will see inside of the core that there's going to be some new options. Now, this is not in main MiSTer update all yet. If you want to play this core at the time of the release, you need to get it off Discord. But you're going to see we have the standard dithering options. Then we have a render 24-bit color mode. That is not going to be as important for this comparison, but you're going to see a texture filter, and it's going to have a filter strength. We can do all polygons dithered and dithered plus shading, and we have a filter strength of 25, 50, 75, or 100%. If you take a look at the box and that brick wall right there, you can 100% see it changing in real time. And if we go to 16:9, we might get a little bit of polygon culling in the edges or some glitches. This is still a work in progress. But suddenly the textures on Tomb Raider look more like Nintendo 64 than PlayStation 1. Each game is going to require a different percentage. Some things will look good on one game won't look good on another. But I think right here 100% on Tomb Raider 2 looks really nice. As we go through the options here, take a look at that cardboard box or that wooden box to the left hand side of the screen, and as we turn off texture filtering, it becomes a pixelated mess. That is just what the PlayStation 1 looked like, but as we go through that filter intensity from 25 to 50 to 75 to even 100, you're going to see that filtering in effect. Now, it might not look spectacular up close. This is an example just to show you what it looks like in its changes. From afar, it does an absolutely spectacular job of kind of just smoothing things out. Now, this is mileage may vary. You may love the original pixelated look, I certainly do, and you may want nothing to do with these filters. That is fine, but on something like Silent Hill, that 24-bit color mode, you're definitely going to like it. But you'll see here as I turn that filtering back on, everything starts looking a little smoother, and it feels like almost a different game. And it was recommended to play on Gamma 130 just to be able to bring those black levels down ever so slightly. There's a lot of different gamma settings you can choose from to articulate those black levels, and maybe this is slightly too dark, but it gives Silent Hill an atmosphere that I've never seen it have before, and I actually kind of love it. It has this eerie, even scarier, even more oppressive vibe to it. And that's going to be something you're able to do with all of these different options, is to play around with them, because these are big features. They make PlayStation 1 better than original hardware. But go ahead and watch a comparison side by side. I'll stop talking so you can just look at what they look like in motion compared. Enjoy.
2, fight!
When you're not super zoomed up on them like I was in the Tomb Raider 2 example, that platform, the 100% filtering looks absolutely spectacular. But it's not just the texture filtering and the 24-bit color mode that are part of this test score. Take a look at that frame rate up at the top left hand corner. If you're not familiar with this Need for Speed entry, it is kind of a slideshow, but we're getting it to run almost at a locked 30 frames a second, and it's going above 30 frames a second. And how is that possibly being done? That is because this core also includes a turbo mode where you can adjust the actual speed of the processors. You will see it here. Cheats need to be off for turbo, but if we turn off that turbo right there, you're going to see that frame rate starts dipping down below 30. It's going to get into the teens in some spots depending on what's being drawn on screen at one time from the PlayStation 1 hardware itself. This turbo mode is spectacular. It doesn't improve every single game, but the games that it improves makes a massive difference, because with it back on, you're seeing we're at 36, almost 38 frames per second, and there are different speeds of the turbo. There's low, there's medium, and there's high. So you can adjust it to your liking. Some games may be glitchy with it, but between the texture filtering, the 24-bit color mode, and the turbo, we can take something like Need for Speed here and really start changing it around to make it look like PlayStation 1.5. This is never going to look like a PlayStation 2 game, when we can make it look so much better than an original PlayStation 1 game, and people do really love those improvements. Because you'll see the texture filtering is on here, and if we do something like take that widescreen all the way to 16:9, don't forget it's going to stretch the 2D assets but not the polygons. Suddenly we're playing this game in a full 16:9 widescreen with a tiny bit of polygon culling at the edges. You could dial back on the widescreen, it just looks nice to me here. With that texture filtering, with a frame rate that runs faster than original PlayStation 1 hardware, this really is like another half of a PlayStation duct taped together. But hey, if you like everything the way it is visually, but you want the game to run a little bit faster, just go ahead and put turbo to high on Need for Speed Hot Pursuit, and you're going to get a much better performing game than you did on original hardware. Like I said earlier, every single game is going to require different settings, and you need to decide what looks the best. Look at those logs on the ground in the bottom left hand corner, that texture. You're going to see here, if we just turn it off completely, it's going to look a little bit more pixelated. There's no texture filtering here. If we have it at 100%, it looks a little bit smeared. 25% is nice, you might like it there. 50% may be more to your liking, it's still a little bit pixelated. 75% leaves the detail but doesn't smooth it out too much. So for me, I like it at 75%, at least for Tomba 2. And that's where I left it for this caption. You're going to see it just looks nice and clean. All the textures are cleaned up, but they're not so smoothed over that they look like a Nintendo 64 texture. Nothing against the Nintendo 64, love the console, but the textures are blurry, you have to admit it. And this is just another fun way to experience PlayStation 1 games with a slightly modern sheen, using this core, upscaling it to something like 1080p. If you need to use the turbo mode, you can, using those different color bit depths as well as the texture filtering. You can make PlayStation 1 look like something that it never looked like before, and it does smooth out some of those edges. But if you see here, if we just turn it all off completely, you'll see that everything gets back to pixelated. This is a real-time adjustment. You just pick the setting and it happens in real time in the core, and that is spectacular. Just remember, it only works for certain types of texture. Something like Dino Crisis here, you're not going to see any change in some of the pre-rendered stuff the way it's presented, but you can start seeing changes in some of the actual models, the textures on them. So depending on how the game's made, different things will happen depending on how you do them, and you just need to experiment to see what's good. But honestly, leaving this in high turbo mode, the game runs faster, and it's running too fast compared to what it should, at least in my opinion, but it actually feels a little bit more action-packed and a little bit faster pace, and I kind of really like that for this particular game. So you get to play around with all of these different settings and see what works best for you. But it's amazing we have them. But yeah, Robert updated the PlayStation 1 core. The first core I ever said was better than original hardware, and it is even better today. You get 24-bit color rendering, you get that texture filtering, you have widescreen options, you have turbo mode. This is like a PlayStation 1 if it had been released like 2 or 3 years later onto the market. There's so many new features. If you have any questions about how to set them up, leave me a comment down below. Otherwise, yeah, check out the new PlayStation 1 core. We'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.